GatorSports.com.
All right, welcome to our first Hoopscast of the year. Of course, I haven't seen you guys since the Sugar Bowl finale, and this will be the first Hoopscast, and we promise not to mention Lane Kiffin at all during the Hoopscast, okay, Kevin?
You must have had a lot of fun in New Orleans, too.
We did. We did after the craziness of the first 3 days when you literally were glued to your phone. It was wild, but it's certainly, everything's calmed down everywhere but Knoxville, but certainly calmed down here. And of course, the Florida basketball team off to an 0-2 start in the SEC after that great start, Kevin, with the Michigan State win and the FSU win, which still they count on their resume. They're at a crossroads right now, I think.
Yeah, they're really struggling. I mean, if you take a look at the miracle shot, against North Carolina State, you could be talking right now about a 3-game losing streak instead of a 2-game losing streak. Pretty fortunate to have a team that's kind of struggling coming in LSU on Saturday. They're also off to an 0-2 start, but certainly, it's been a rough go, whether it's been, the poor shooting in December and now the defense taking a step back in early January in conference play, just giving up way too many easy baskets at this point.
Well, I think they gave up 90 in the paint the last 2 games, and you can't win like that. And, the bottom line I think we all have to look at is they're not a great team. They're like Billy said, their margin for error is not real high, but we've been hearing this now for 3 years.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about margin for error, like little things like boxing out on free throws, a 5-point play
that was
that changed the momentum of the game.
Look at the South Alabama game. It was South
Alabama.
NC State at the end of the half. Nobody blocks out the point guard, and he gets the putback, at the end of regulation, and sends the game into overtime. I mean, I'm looking at Warner. He's watching the ball. What are you doing?
Yeah, South Alabama and Richmond were 2 other games that were, late in the game. They had a missed box out on free throws that proved very costly. So, it's a game. They're going to have to do the little things well in order to be successful.
Well, they seem like a team that does something poorly in every game. And the thing is, it's not the same thing. One day it's shooting, one day it's 3-point defense, the other day it's interior defense, it may be ball handling one day, and they just are struggling to put their game together. But there's no question that the better team won on Tuesday night. I had first chance to see Kentucky in person. I'd seen them on TV, and I kept thinking, they're vulnerable. And they were even Tuesday night because they're so young that they do play sloppy at times, and they let teams hang around, but in the end, they always finish strong.
Yeah, I think that's been a common denominator for them. They can be a little disinterested at time, or they get off to I remember watching them early in the season against UConn, where they get off to a hot start, and then they kind of let teams get back into the game a little bit, and that was certainly the case. Give Irving Walker credit, he got hot, and he's really been hot as a pistol in SEC play. He's 9 for his last 17 for 3-point range. He got him that nice little run, that nice little flurry that gave him some energy. It got him back, but usually when you're a team like that and you're talent challenged and you make that run, eventually it catches up to you. And Florida went through 5 straight possessions at the end of that game where you saw Wall clamp down on Irving Walker, and they couldn't get a quality shot off. The shot selection was a little questionable. They had some turnovers. Kenny Boynton as a freshman is just not quite ready yet, and that's how Kentucky managed to pull away at the end of the game.
Yeah, Boynton's obviously pretty good, but he's not. I mean, I've seen other freshmen come in here that were better as freshmen. He's not. He's going to have to elevate his game, and it may be one of those guys that doesn't really show it until his sophomore year. It seems, though, that this program, Kevin, since the second national championship, first year they weren't very good. Second year they were a little better. This year, again, just a little better, but still they're going to clearly be a big-time bubble team at the end of the year.
And I think lacking in the front court, and certainly you can look back to Kenny Cagey, who's out with back spasms now. Eloy Vargas didn't work out. I mean, their front court recruiting, other than Maurice Spates, has really kind of backfired on them lately. They just don't have enough horses up front, and that's a big reason why you see a team that's near the bottom in block shots, near the problem in rebounding, and the percentages of the games are won at the rim. And right now, Florida just doesn't really have that presence at the rim. Vernon Macklin, he's been inconsistent. He's up and down. Some games he shows up, and right now he's had a big problem with foul trouble, and that's something that he's going to have to rectify in SEC play. 9 fouls to his first 4 games.
Well, that's the thing. They're still a big man short of being a really good team, and I've said this before. They've got a lot of guys who should be playing 10 minutes that are playing 32 minutes, and that's part of their problem. The talent level's not there, and it really showed up against Kentucky, but. We'll see if they can kind of, like I said, I think they're at a crossroads. I think Saturday night's game is a must-win game. As you mentioned, LSU off to a bad start. I watched their game against Alabama. They were awful in that game, and which is inexplicable. But this is a game they really have to have.
Yeah.
Especially at home.
And, LSU was up 8 in the second half last night against South Carolina, but kind of faded down the stretch. That's been a big problem. Tasman Mitchell, I just looked this up, he's playing 38.5 minutes a game out of 40. So he's getting worn down late, and they really don't have much to support him. Storm Warren is an okay guy, but Bo Spencer is a point guard, takes a lot of shots, sometimes shoots them out of games. So I think this is certainly a winnable game for Florida to kind of get back on track. And it is a little bit of a softer stretch on their schedule because Arkansas is also struggling a little bit. Then you come home with Georgia and South Carolina. This is a chance for them to get themselves righted a little bit. But, Florida's going to have to play well as well and elevate their game. The
complaint in the past couple of years was that Florida's schedule was backloaded, and this year it seemed to be front-loaded with those first 2 games. I mean, let's face it. You go to Vanderbilt, which is a much better team than they were a year ago. Probably the most athletic team Kevin Stallings has had. You play Kentucky, the number 2 team in the country at home. If you go 0-2, nobody's shocked by that. Whereas before, you were playing Auburn, you were playing Georgia early, and you got out to kind of maybe a fool's gold of a record. But this team, we'll see. You hit it right on the head over these next 4 games. How they get through those is going to tell us a lot. And even as bad as Arkansas is, they play well at home.
Yeah, and John Pelfrey is Courtney Fortson is a little bit healthier now. Yeah. John Pelfrey is going to get them.
He's not suspended anymore either.
Exactly.
That helps.
And John Pelfrey can get him to regroup a little bit. And I think with this new SEC TV deal, you're going to have a lot more games national televised. So I think that was a big thing at Florida at the end of the season. In February and March, you were getting more games on national TV. Now you've got national TV games all over the place. So they're trying to get more marquee games in January as well, and that's why the schedule is a little more front-loaded.
Well, let's quickly kind of look at where the SEC is right now. Give me your assessment of what you think they did in the non-conference schedule, and did they, because it's been abysmal the last 2 years, do you think they did better this year?
They did a little bit better, but they still had some bad losses. I mean, certainly Florida losing to Richmond and South Alabama. I believe Georgia and South Carolina lost to Wofford. Mississippi State lost to Rider in the beginning of the year. But there have been some good wins. I mean, Georgia beating Georgia Tech was a good win. Florida beating Michigan State was a big win. Kentucky certainly has had some nice non-conference wins. North Carolina and UConn. So there have been some positives and there have been some negatives. I was talking to Jimmy Dykes the other day. He thinks it could be a 6-bid league this year. Last year it was a 3-bid league. I could say 5 or 6 might be generous, but it could happen.
Well, you look at obviously Kentucky and Tennessee look like locks, and when you look over on the other side, there's a lot of somebody's going to end up winning that division. They'll probably get in, and South Carolina's a good team to watch. Interesting to see how they share. And I like Vanderbilt a lot. I like Vanderbilt more like maybe because in the past you knew if they were one bad shooting night from getting knocked out of a tournament, but now they can go inside. And Ogilvy seems like he's a little bit more excited about playing. Yeah, and Jeffrey Taylor has grown up, and John Jenkins, the freshman, gives them really an added development as a really good dead-eye shooter. I mean, he's exceptional. I think Mississippi State and I think Ole Miss are 2 teams that could make the NCAA tournament from the West, and then maybe 3 or 4 from the East. Well, I think the East is a little bit better than the West this year. I think the biggest fear of the Florida fans is they're going to finish 6th in the East, not 5th as predicted, but I think they'll get it going. I mean, Billy's a good coach; he knows what he's doing. What's the biggest surprise for you this year so far in the SEC? Well, I think Georgia has played okay, and I think Alabama under Anthony Grant is playing reasonably well. They had a tough 1-point loss to Vanderbilt, but they're starting to regroup a little bit. And but I really like some of the things that Mark Fox is kind of doing there at Georgia. I watched their game last night against Ole Miss, and they were in the game, late. And I think he's got Travis Leslie playing much better, and Trey Tompkins playing better. So they're a team that could, by the end of the season, get it together, maybe surprise, and maybe Fox could be a dark horse guy for Coach of the Year if they get near 500. I don't even remember Travis Leslie from last year. I mean, that's how nondescript he was. And then you saw them posterize at Kentucky. I think it was Cousins that he dunked on. That was unbelievable the other day. So yeah, I think they're a surprise. I think I'll be honest with you, Kentucky's a bit of a surprise to me. We knew they had good talent, but I don't think anybody expected 17-0. Yeah, and especially with the installing a new offense, a dribble drive offense, which is very difficult to pick up. But it seems like they kind of have that down now. I mean, they're scoring about 82 points a game. They've been very good. If anything, with Kentucky, their defensive intensity kind of dips from time to time. I just think when you're that young, it's hard to stay focused for 40 minutes. Sure. And they've got 4 freshmen who are playing major parts. Obviously, Wall and Bledsoe, who's just, I mean, it had to be hard for Billy to sit there and look at Bledsoe and look at Patterson and go, could have had him. What could have been. What a difference that team would be if they did get him. But yeah, no question. Those things happen. We'll see if Florida can put it together against LSU. on Saturday night in the O-Dome, 8 o'clock start, I believe, right?
Yeah, 8 p.m. tip, FSN. So it'll be it'll be an interesting game, and a game that I think Florida really needs to kind of get back on track and get their confidence going.
Kevin and I will both be there, and we will talk next week about that game as well as Arkansas Thursday, right?
Thursday night ESPN game, yeah.
Yeah, see, I know what I'm doing. I go right from football to basketball, no problem. Until then, Kevin Brockway and Pat Dooley, the Gainesville Sun saying so long from the Sunshine State.